Gary C. Johnson is a personal injury attorney practicing in Pikeville, Hazard, and Central Kentucky. You can reach him at 1-800-337-4002. Life is a journey, and everyone deserves all the happiness that this life has to offer. That's why attorney Gary C. Johnson created a weekly radio program almost 20 years ago to look at ways that we can improve our relationships, our health, and most important, our frame of mind. You know, by having the right information, our choices can be easier, and so can our happiness. Welcome to this edition of Simply Life with Gary C. Johnson.
Hello, everyone. Welcome into the radio program Simply Life. I'm Keith Casebolt, and my dear friend and the creator of this program, back with us again this week, Gary C. Johnson.
Wonderful to be here, as always. My friends, I'm going to start the program out by asking you to go vote. Early voting started in Pike County yesterday. I assume it may have started in other counties where this is playing, I hope. So please, if you're worried about the virus, which you should be, go vote and vote early. You can go to the courthouse right now. As I'm speaking in Pike County, you can go and vote. Do it. There is nothing in this democracy in our country more important than your right to vote and you exercising that right.
Yeah. Also, the ballots are available also, that if you wanted to vote early.
Yeah. So go vote. Please, my friends, go vote. You can't complain about anything if you don't vote. But you probably will anyhow, but it's okay. That's life.
That's a great point. At least you can say, hey, I did my part. I cast my vote.
At least that's right. So now I just bought the right to complain.
Yeah, my voice was heard. I agree.
We're getting cold weather starting, as you can all have noticed, I'm sure. And with that comes what my son C.D., when he was a small child, referred to as drizzle days.
Oh. Since you pointed out the drizzle days, I have realized you and CD are 100% right. There is something about the cloud coverage and the rain and the darkness that just kind of moves over to your personality, doesn't it?
It does. And that sometimes, and many times, it brings on depression. So, my friends, I want to talk to you about mental attitude today and how you can maybe stave off the depression that may try to take over. Okay? And I went back to my Dale Carnegie book to see what Dale Carnegie had to say about our mental attitudes.
You know what? I love that book. And I just want to say to all of our friends, if you get the Dale Carnegie book, you will enjoy reading it the 20th time as much as you do the first time.
So what he says, the first rule he says is forget yourself by becoming interested in others. Every day do a good deed that will put a smile of joy on someone else's face.
Gary, if we could possibly do that one little deal, if we could wake up and say, today my goal is to do something good for someone else and put a smile on their face, we could change the planet.
And it doesn't have to be any big deal.
No, it can be a good morning. It can be holding the door for someone. It can be a compliment.
A sincere thank you.
Absolutely.
That may very well put a smile on someone's face. Your goal, my friends, on that rule this week is every day to make sure you put a smile on someone else's face. Every day. Only expect it one time.
Now, what about our friends that are saying, but Gary, what about me? What about my smile?
You will automatically smile when they smile.
That's the whole point of the conversation, that you will...
This is for you, not them.
Yeah, you'll find your smile when you do that.
Now, this is for your own mental well-being, my friends. So let's talk about the 7 ways that Dale Carnegie says that you need to cultivate a mental attitude to get through the winter months, okay?
And they're coming.
That rule number 1, Let's fill our minds with thoughts of peace, courage, health, and hope. For our life is what our thoughts make it.
So, what I like about what you just read, Dale Carnegie is telling us that we have the power to put on the brakes and stop and say, I'm not going to let these negative thoughts come into my mind. I am going to intentionally put good thoughts into my mind.
Read a little survey yesterday, which didn't surprise me, but it found that people that watch the news on a regular basis have a lower level of happiness than the people that don't.
Really? Now, let's see. Why would that be? Would that be because most of the news is negative?
That's right.
And would that also be because now, instead of getting the news just one time a day, we have the news 24 hours a day so people can stay in touch to it?
And another thing that really surprised me on that survey was that people that are really interested in politics are not as happy as people that aren't.
Well, I can understand those. I really can.
I thought that was interesting, 2 little surveys that they did. Just thought I'd pass that on to you, my friends. You are what you think, no more, no less. You have a choice on what you choose to think. You have a choice on how you choose to view what's around you.
Mm-hmm.
When we delve into misery, we have made poor choices.
You are one of the most positive people I've ever met in my life, if not the most positive. But you're sitting here telling me that it would be easy, even for you, to fall into depression and misery if you allowed all of those thoughts to enter into your mind.
We're human.
Yeah.
As I've said so many times, with all the frailties that come with being human. Those thoughts will try to pervade into everybody's mind. They will try to get you. That old chatterbox, as they sometimes referred to as old slick, will try to get you and make you miserable. I mean, it will. You have to be aware of that, and then you have to say, no, I'm not going there. I'm going to think positive thoughts. I'm going to think something good. I'm going to remember something in my life that made me happy. I'm not going to go into this spiral of misery that my chatterbox is begging me to go do. I'm not going to do it.
I've told the story a couple of times. You always talk about misery loves company, and you had done such a wonderful program on the radio, and it was so uplifting. And I walked out and I got in the car and I had to make kind of a long drive, and I was so uplifted and so excited. And as soon as I got in the car, I heard that little voice, the old chatterbox slick, that said, now that we're alone, let's talk about all the bad things that are going on. And I was like, good heavens, Gary's right. I mean, you have to fight that voice.
Let's talk about that a little bit more, Keith, because a lesson was learned on that day, if you'll remember.
Oh, yeah, a big lesson.
I told Keith, I said, when those negative thoughts come at you and start putting you down and making you feel less than what you really are, write them down. Put them on a piece of paper. And then the next time we get together, we will discuss them. Now, what was the outcome of that, Keith? Tell them.
The outcome was I slipped the paper over to Gary before the show, and he said, holy cow, you said these things to yourself? Your chatterbox said these things? And I said, yeah. And when I saw the things that were down on the paper, I thought, this is crazy. I mean, those things that I wrote down that the chatterbox was saying, first of all, were not real, were not true, they were crazy. And you looked at them in amazement and said, how could you let the chatterbox say to this to you? Tell it to shut up. Change the narrative. And probably one of the best days of my life.
You did it, didn't you?
Because I realized then what a waste of time it was to listen to those negative thoughts.
And the interesting thing about it was, and those of you that know how talented Keith is, but just by being on these shows, on TV, on radio, extreme talent, one of the most talented people I've ever been in a room with in my entire, all the years I've lived.
You're too kind.
But he was putting things on paper that his chatterbox was telling him that was demeaning him. And he was his own worst enemy.
Oh, I found the enemy. Yeah, I found the enemy, and the enemy was me. Yeah, but writing it down was the difference. When you told me to write it down, it made it real. Up until then, it was just those thoughts in your head. But when I wrote the thoughts down and had to read them, and quite frankly, I was embarrassed to put the paper across to you for you to read them, and as I looked at your eyes when you read them, I could see you were saying, "You said what?" But it was a great test because after that, I realized what a waste of time, what a waste of my life it was to put up with those thoughts when I could make them go away.
And you did.
And I did. Yeah.
So remember, folks, you are what you think. Let's move on to rule number 2 from Dale Carnegie on how to get through this winter, okay? Let's never try to get even with our enemies, because if we do, we will hurt ourselves far more than we hurt them. Let's do as General Eisenhower said. Let's never waste a minute thinking about people we don't like.
Wow.
Powerful, huh?
Isn't that a great thing? That this person has taken a part of your life, a part of your mind, that you're spending your time thinking about them, and yet you don't like them, and they've done something to you, and you just gave everybody the freedom to say, I am no longer going to think about this person.
And if any of you now, which as it always pops in my head, these things is the strangest moment, there's someone out there right now that is harboring a horrible grudge, and you are thinking about it, and it's going over and over in your head right now. I know that. There's not a doubt in my mind. There's at least one of you that's listening that's doing that. Let it go. Turn it loose. You are destroying yourself instead of the other person. What's the old Chinese proverb? When you set out for revenge, dig 2 graves.
If you intend on burying that person, you'll end up burying yourself.
Right. So turn it loose, let it go, put them out of your mind. Do not give them any more opportunity to harm you, because they are harming you when you're plotting your revenge. That is a damage to you.
Yeah, so when people have said, oh, revenge is hell, well, it is, but you're the one that's going through it because you're trying to hold on to it. Isn't that right?
And remember, Eisenhower said, don't even think about people you don't like. Don't even give them 1 second of your dash.
When you could be thinking about somebody you do like.
Yeah.
So instead of thinking about this person who has done you wrong, what about thinking about the person who has been of help to you? A friend, a mentor, somebody that's been there to pick you up when you're down.
And if my friends, if any of you have done someone wrong, call them and apologize. Sincerely tell them you're sorry. Simply because that will give them some peace, and they won't be sitting around figuring out how to get back at you or how to do something to you. In self-defense, call them and apologize, okay?
It'll make your life happier.
It'll make you a lot, and you'll feel better. You'll feel better.
And you know, as you've always pointed out to me, you could be wrong. It could have been your fault anyway.
Principal battles, the old story. Years ago, I learned you never fight a principal battle, and the reason simply is you may be wrong.
Isn't that the truth?
I did it once, and I was wrong, and I've regretted it ever since. Don't think much about it, though, because it would make me feel bad. And I like feeling good.
But you know what? It's brought you to the point where you have that little saying, could be a good thing, could be a bad thing.
Time will tell.
Time will tell. And now I realize exactly how important that phrase is, because we get caught up in that it's good or it's bad. And the truth of the matter is, we really don't know. Time will tell if it'll be good or bad.
And if you're really aggravated about something right now, my friends, sit down for a second and say, now, is this really going to bother me a year from now, 6 months, next week, next month? And put it in its place, because life goes on. And your objective is to control your thoughts so that you can have some peace and happiness. Because in the end, that's all that matters. Your family, peace, and happiness.
Yeah. If your problem 5 years ago exists today, more than likely it's a problem. But more than likely, you don't know what your problem was 5 years ago.
You don't even remember your problems from 5 years ago. I don't.
Having a little trouble remembering what was for dinner last night, let alone the problems.
Second thought.
Yeah.
Okay, rule 3. Let's do it. It's got 3 sections. A, instead of worrying about ingratitude, let's expect it. Let's remember that Jesus healed 10 lepers in one day, and only one thanked him. Why should we expect more gratitude than Jesus did? B, let's remember that the only way to find happiness is not to expect gratitude, but to give solely for the joy of giving. C, let's remember that gratitude is a cultivated trait. So if we want our children to be grateful, we must train them to be grateful.
You know, when you first addressed that subject years ago, I thought, honest to goodness, I didn't get it. Because I thought, how could anybody give anything and not expect gratitude, in return? We want to see the smile on people's face, or we want to hear a thank you, or, oh my goodness, that was great that you did it. And the more I studied it, and the more I listened to you, I realized you were 100% right. If you give, it should be from the heart, and that's all that matters. And then you go on.
And more often than not, you will receive gratitude.
You will.
But don't make it a condition of the gift, is the point.
And that's where the happiness comes.
Right.
So by not expecting the gratitude, if it comes, great. If it doesn't, it's still great.
That's right.
Because you did what you wanted to do and what made you feel good.
Rule number 4. Every morning, count your blessings, not your troubles. Now, how many of you got up this morning and started counting your troubles rather than your blessings?
You know, you and I were talking about this Dale Carnegie book, and I think the story's in there somewhere, where the Great Depression hit and the guy lost like $40 million in the stock market, and he only had $20 million left. But he went to the bridge and jumped off and killed himself. And that example is to illustrate what you just said. The man had $20 million, but he was so distraught over losing the 40 that he ended his life. And we would be sitting here going, that is crazy. He still had $20 million. What a blessing. But he was caught up in the troubles.
Well, he let his thoughts get out of control. He let his emotions take over.
And we do the same thing when we wake up and think, oh, we've got this one problem, but here we've got 10 blessings that we're not even saying thank you for.
Not even thinking about. I was talking to my son, GC, which is Gary Jr., last night on the phone, and he broke his finger in his jiu-jitsu class. And he was talking about how he was dwelling and thinking about that finger and all the things that was impeding his ability to type. It hurt. And he was so concentrating on that finger. And then he had the foresight to say to me, he said, and then I realized that was crazy what I was doing. And I sat back and thought about all the wonderful things that was going on in my life. And he said, and then I forgot about my finger.
Wow.
I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. Plus the fact that he had 9 more that were doing okay.
They're doing fine. Oh, he was dwelling on that finger, though. And we do that.
Listen, it is so easy to do. So easy to do.
Okay. Rule number 5, my friends. This is an important rule. Let's not imitate others. I hesitated because this is so important. Let's not imitate others. Let's find ourselves and be ourselves, for envy is ignorance, and imitation is suicide. And by suicide, he means mental happiness suicide.
Keeping up with the Joneses, trying to be somebody else.
It's not just that. How many times have we said on here that every one of my friends out there has something they can do better than at least 10,000 other people? And another thing that when I was talking to my son last night is he finally come to realize what his talent was after all these years, which he's just a personable person. And he said, I've always been that way, and I didn't realize it was a talent.
It is a talent.
Yeah.
It's a talent that a lot of people pay big dollars to go to classes to learn how to talk and say hello and meet people and to be friendly. A lot of people can't do it.
And each of you has a talent. Now, and the reason I'm using my son as an example, he's had that talent all of his life. He never realized it was a talent because it was who he was.
Came easy to him.
It came easy to him.
Yeah, it was him.
He assumed everybody else had it. Well, you're doing the same things, my friend.
But that is a great point. I mean, I look around me, and it's like, my brother drives one of these big tractor-trailer trucks. Gary, I couldn't get it out of the parking lot. And he's like, oh, it's no big deal. And it's people that have these talents, whether it's being personable, like your son GC or whatever it is, they think nothing of it when it really is amazing.
And each of my friends that are listening has a talent. Every single one of you has something special about you. And when you see it, as my friend Sandy Ramsey told me to say that day, when you see it in someone else, tell them that you recognize how unique they are with that talent. And tell them then to pass it on to someone else.
And I guarantee you they'll be shocked when you tell them. They'll probably be so humble to say, oh, that's not really a big deal. But it is a big deal.
It's, like I say, everyone is special. And each of my friends out there has something about them that's special.
So your point is, if you're unique, why would you want to try to make it an imitation of something else?
That's right. Why would you envy someone else?
Great point.
They just have a different talent than you. That's all. So envy is ignorance, and imitation is mental suicide.
And it will hold you back from being what you can be.
That's Rule 5. Rule 6. When fate hands us a lemon, let's do everything in our power to make us some lemonade.
That's an old saying, but isn't it so true? I mean, whenever the lemon comes, and I think back to a story you told about when you got stranded at an airport. Your flight got delayed for 2 hours, 2 or 3 hours. Most people would have been upset. You ended up striking a conversation with some people, I think, who were from Canada.
They were. Most interesting conversation I've had in years.
You said, Keith, I learned more about Canada. I learned more about these people. The time flew, and by the time they called your plane, you were hoping that you had more time to talk to the 2 people you had met.
Well, that goes with our rule of be there.
Yeah.
Be wherever you are. Let's think about this, folks. You're always going to be somewhere. Everyone listening to this program, you're somewhere right now, right?
You are.
Be where you are. You may not have another chance in life to be anywhere. You never know what's going to happen in life. We don't have a clue what's going to happen tomorrow. That's tomorrow. But you have total control over today. You have total control over being where you are. If you're sitting listening to this in a room that's full of people waiting, strike up a conversation with each other. Look around and say, hey, does anybody know a good joke? But do something. But be where you are. And enjoy life and enjoy the people around you. That's the point.
What I loved about your story, you could have sat there by yourself, waiting the whole 2 or 3 hours and been miserable waiting on that flight and upset, and instead you ended up having a wonderful time.
And my friends, you can too. Okay, let's go to Rule 7. This is the last one.
All right.
Are we ready for it? Let's forget our own unhappiness by trying to create a little happiness for others. When you are good to others, you are best to yourself. And what he's saying there is, forget how miserable you are, do a little something to try to make someone else happy, and believe it or not, you will make yourself happy.
You know, that line is so important because any of our regular listeners will remember when you got the email from the lady who said, you talk about happiness, I can't be happy. I've got all these problems. I've got this problem. I've got that problem. And she went on and on. But what you just pointed out in rule number 7 from Dale Carnegie, if you start trying to make others happy around you, all of those things in your life will get better or disappear, and you will find happiness.
One of the things the lady said was that her family or people or whatever didn't visit her. And what I would like to say if she was listening to this program is, what do you do when someone does visit you? Do you complain? Do you criticize? Do you condemn?
Discuss all your problems?
Do you ask them about themselves, what's happening in their lives? Do you take a genuine interest in them when they visit you? Or do you just talk about all the other people that haven't visited you? What do you do when they do visit you to make them want to come back? That's the issue.
Well, I love the lesson, and you've given us a whole lot to work on. The main thing is to try to do something good for somebody today and make a smile on their face.
And put a smile on their face, and then automatically you'll put one on yours.
You can catch Gary's television show Tuesday nights on WYMT, your CBS affiliate, 7 p.m. A late-night replay is in Central Kentucky on your CBS affiliate, WKYT. If you get up early, you can catch us on the Fox affiliate, 6:30 a.m. on Monday to start your week, 6:30 a.m. on Friday to start your weekend. And if you need to get in touch with Gary, it's GaryCJohnson.com. My friend, happy thoughts to everyone.
Amen.
On behalf of Gary C. Johnson, I'm Keith Casebolt. Thank you so much for taking this time to spend with us. As always, Gary and I look forward to seeing you again next week, right here at this same time.
Thanks for listening to Simply Life with attorney Gary C. Johnson. If you'd like to reach the Gary C. Johnson Law Firm, you can call 1-800-337-4002. Until next week, may you be safe, healthy, and happy. And most of all, remember that you're unique and a gift from God. If you'd like to receive a podcast of this week's show or any future show, go to GaryCJohnson.com and sign up today. Thanks for listening to Simply Life.
Hello, I'm Gary C. Johnson. Lawyers are spending millions of dollars asking you to give them a call. What could I say to you that would make you give us a call? How about the fact I invented the concept of judo law? How about the fact that using judo law, my team set the record for the largest verdict in the state of Kentucky? No other law firm has even come close. How's that for a reason to give us the call?
800-337-4002.